I'm right about to interview one of my favorite SEOs in the world, Julie Adams. I first learned about Julie's story in the Affiliate Lab, where she shared her story of quitting the agency that she worked at and switching over to affiliate SEO. And now she's making more in 1 month than she did in an entire year at the agency. So stick around for this interview because we're going to get into not only her story, but her entire process on how she ranks websites, her backlinks, her on-site SEO, how she does everything in order to get her affiliate portfolio ranked today. Before we get started in this interview, why don't you just give everyone a little heads up on who you are and what is it that you do in this world of SEO?
Sure. Thanks for having me, Matt. I have been in SEO for about 7 or 8 years. I started kind of at the bottom, not knowing much, worked at an agency. I started working with content basically and just fell in love with everything that goes into SEO, everything like the technical aspect of it, up into like seeing results and making money. So I was working at the agency during the day, and then I would go home and do affiliate SEO at night. So I just kind of tumbled my way into this industry and have had pretty good success. So
Awesome. We're very excited to learn more about your story, but why don't we take it back a little bit? First off, how old are you? Where are you from? Where you live in? What's that whole story
I'm
about?
27 out of Orlando, Florida. I've been here my whole life. I love it. I'm big into outdoors and all that stuff, and I'm not doing the techie stuff.
Nice. Born and raised in the South?
Yeah, I grew up in the Sarasota, Venice area, so around the beach, and I moved here when I was, I don't know, 4th or 5th grade. So big into Disney, big into, everything that Floridians are into, all that good stuff.
Awesome. And what kind of education do you have? Did you go to school, college?
Yeah, I am a college dropout. I actually was a business finance major. I went to Valencia Community College, got my AA, started through my bachelor's, and almost failed one class. And I'm the type of person where if I don't absolutely excel at something, I'm really demotivated by it. So I got an opportunity to work at that agency right as I was just about to fail out of this class. So I decided to just drop out of school and pursue this full time. So I'm still kind of pending on my bachelor's degree.
Interesting. I have the same personality type. If I can't be like really good at something, there's no point in it for me. I've quit a million things because of that. Yeah. So I get that. So next question I have is, how did you get into SEO? Like, how did the whole thing start?
Yeah, to piggyback off of what I was saying a little bit earlier, I honestly stumbled into it. When I started the job at the agency, I was working at a movie theater. So I was basically scooping popcorn. It was my first job. I also did some babysitting on the side, which is how I actually met my boss at the agency. So he basically saw that I was pretty smart, needed an opportunity, and just kind of scooped me up like popcorn. Oh, Lord. So I just started working at the agency, not even knowing what the term SEO stood for. It was a total mystery to me. I thought it was just these 3 letters. I started just as an 18, 19-year-old going into this office setting, and my boss basically just said, "You're in charge of content, you're in charge of links." And I'm like, great, what does that mean? And then just kind of learned on the job from there, in all honesty. No formal training or anything like that.
Interesting. So on the job in that particular agency, did they just give you in-house training? Was it mostly based on their SOPs and their internal knowledge, or did you take any courses or any other places to learn SEO from?
This was in what I consider to be just when SEO stopped being sketchy. So it was back, spun content and like safe links and stuff like that. So that was what my idea of SEO was. So when I first started there, I was literally just managing spun content, editing it, writing some content myself, and managing Fiverr link orders. We had no standard operating procedures when I got there. It was just do X, Y, Z, and don't lose the client. So
it makes sense. I mean, that's the basic plan. And tell me about, let's talk a little bit more about the agency that you work for. First off, I'm curious to know why you decided to leave it.
Money and time. So I'm fiercely independent. I love SEO. I basically stumbled into something that I really enjoy. I feel really lucky because of that. But still, I'm working 40 some odd hours a week. And as you can tell by how I'm describing this agency, it's small. I was one of 3 core employees at the time. And I was at the top that I could basically be at. So there was no room to really grow. There was no opportunity to make more money. There was no room really to learn anything else. It was just kind of every day you go in, you do your work, and you go home. So I discovered affiliate SEO, just kind of trying to learn how to make passive income, just how everybody else probably discovers it. And just I was good at SEO. I thought it was my way out. I wanted the free time and the money. So
I get that 100%. And you can throw this question right back at me if you don't feel comfortable asking it, but what was your monthly or annual salary there at that agency?
I don't remember what I started at. It was definitely in the realm of minimum wage because, like I said, I had no experience. So it was probably $8 or $9 an hour, whatever minimum wage it was at the time. And I maxed out at about 40K a year. So.
Okay. And how many clients did you manage at that 40K a year?
The most that I managed at one time was somewhere around 70 or 80. Now I've personally worked with hundreds of accounts as I worked there. But when we were at our peak, I was managing upwards of 80 accounts at once.
That's insane. And that's awesome ROI for the agency side. But how
Yeah,
about like your
for sure.
stress levels? How were you able to handle 80 clients at a time?
It was really stressful. I wasn't always honest about what I could handle. So I would do what I could and then just stress myself out and figure it out. I did have help. I was basically the brains of the operation. I had people who would, write content. I had people that would move all the pieces that I essentially put into place. So you could kind of think of me as more of a conductor. I would build the plans and then somebody else would basically just implement them. So that's the only way it was really possible. But it was definitely stressful to be expected to answer questions of 80 different accounts. Like, why are they ranking? Like, you can't pull up a report in a meeting. You just have to know this. So that was probably the most stressful part.
Yeah, what do they call it? Trial by fire. I guess that's what happened with you.
Yeah, and I'm grateful for that because with the amount of clients the amount of websites that I manage now, it's chump change in comparison.
Sure. That brings me to my next question. I'm sure you learned quite a few skills on the job there that even carried over to your affiliate career. Can you touch upon that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, SEO for sure. Like I had 80 clients to play with. In the beginning, it wasn't that much, but I did have clients to play with, and it wasn't like they were my clients. If I lost them, honestly, I still had a job. So I had room to experiment in a sense because that was just kind of the environment. But yeah.
Got it. And when you were thinking about making the jump, what kind of fears were going through your head as these kind of thought processes were going through your mind?
Everything that you could think of. So I just have a generalized anxiety. I overthink everything, and jumping ship from a comfortable position in an industry that I love is really scary. Now, I always knew that I would have a job there because, like I said, it was a small company. I actually had to give them 6 months notice to even leave. So I wasn't worried that, I wouldn't be able to jump back in. I was just afraid that I would have to go back kind of with my tail between my legs, having admitted that I tried something and failed. And that is, going back to the school thing. I don't like failing at stuff. So
I was thinking about that recently too, because that's what held my journey back an extra year or two than it needed to be. And it's such an irrational fear. Like, first off, just think about like what would happen if you actually had to go back to that job and you started your first day back. Would they just be like, oh, here she is, oh my God, she didn't
well,
become a
not.
successful entrepreneur? Like, of course not, right? So people listening to this can take note. Like, this is a fear indeed, because it probably comes from our lizard brains or some kind of prehistoric social conditioning, but it's not a real thing. No one is going to care at all.
Yeah.
What was it? Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
Please. No.
I was just going to say it's a rational fear. Like everybody has it. And it's something that helps you grow too. It's like although I'm uncomfortable by the idea of failing, I try to be uncomfortable in life, if that makes sense. Like if I am in my comfort zone, I'm not growing. So you just kind of have to take the jump. Similar to what you did, I'm assuming.
Yeah, I get it 100%. So what was it like the day that you turned in your notice and you say 6 months and I'm out?
So it was, I had been kind of working on it low key. My boss knew what I was doing. He knew that I was about to sell a website. He knew what I was going to sell it for, but I don't think he kind of put all those pieces together. So I sold my first website for $30,000, like pretty good amount for somebody in their early 20s, and definitely enough to be able to sustain me for at least a couple of months to see if I'm going to be good or not. So the day that I quit was the day that I found out that the site sold. So I found out while I was at work. I got an email, and then I immediately ran into his office after, having my anxiety attack and said, I'm quitting. I did this, I want to do this, I can do this. This is proof of concept. This isn't some get rich quick scheme that you see on the internet. Like, this money's going to be in my account. I'm quitting. How much notice do you need? And he was shocked. He didn't think that I'd actually ever do it, but we eventually settled on 6 months. So I stayed for another 6 months.
That's awesome. That's great. And good on you for giving him a 6-month notice. That's obviously, what is that, 12x beyond what people normally do, 2-week notice. So that's amazing.
Yeah.
So now, do you truly have no clients? Like, you don't do any client SEO, or you're full affiliate, or do you still keep some clients?
I would say 99.999% affiliate. I have one account that pays me under $300 a month, and it's kind of a favor for a friend. I really just manage their content and do a little bit of their on-page, but it is by no means substantial. So it's 100% affiliate at this point.
I heard you say that the trigger point for you on turning in your notice was when you made a website sale. So it sounds like you're doing a little moonlighting, like doing your agency work during the day, working on affiliate at night.
Yeah.
What kind of setup did you have going on in order to make you feel comfortable? Like, did you have one affiliate site working in the background, a couple? Like, what did that look like?
So I had one that I was gearing up to sell, but over the course of, I don't know, a year or two, as I was planning this, I started building a new site every quarter. I wanted to get them out of the sandbox, so that way by the time I quit, I had not just 30 some odd $1,000, I also had $30,000 plus residual income, and that residual income replaced what I was making at the agency. So I had this chunk of change plus residual income, and I needed that to feel comfortable.
Yeah, I get it. I would say, like, it's a conservative way to do it, but that's exactly how I think too. Mm-hmm. Like, some people might have just, I need the 30 grand and let's get going, but you had the 30 grand and the salary replacement. Like, it's a no lose situation.
In Florida, like, cost of living here it's rough, especially in Orlando. Like, jobs don't pay as much as, they should, and rent's really, really high. So if I don't have residual income, I can't live off of 30,000 for very long, at least in Orlando, and still be able to, invest in my sites. So I really didn't have an option.
Got it. That's an interesting fact. So with your small portfolio sites that you were working on when you were at your agency, like, what kind of niches were you getting into? Like, you don't have to drill down exactly into the micro niche, but in general.
So at the time, I was basically doing 100% Amazon sites. So the first site that I started, I don't actually consider my first website because it was an absolute flop. It didn't do anything. I ended up letting the domain name expire and all that, but it was a personal thing that I liked, which was motorcycles. So it was a site basically around motorcycles I used to ride. Turns out it's a terrible niche for affiliates. So that was my first site. And then the site that I sold for 30 some odd thousand was in the outdoor niche. So when I was back doing mostly Amazon, it was a lot of sports, outdoors, home, stuff like that. Like, stuff that was expensive on Amazon is basically where I was at the time.
Well, did you ever build on any expired domains, or you're also always building on brand new domains?
At the time, the first two sites were built before I even knew that expired domains were a legitimate way to do anything. So it was all just fresh stuff.
Okay. And then how do you do your keyword research?
At the time or now? I guess.
Let's talk about now. Let's be more relevant.
Okay. So now instead of starting with a keyword, I start with a competitor. So if I find a niche that I think is going to be profitable, instead of just throwing whatever I think might be good into Ahrefs, granted, if I'm not an expert in this industry, I'm not going to have all the ideas that exist anyway. So what I'll basically start with is finding a competitor that's ranking that is a similar size website that I have. So not something that is super micro niche, but not anything that's super high authority. So throw that into Ahrefs and kind of see what pages they have that are generating the most traffic, and then cross-reference that with how expensive the items are, how likely they are to sell online, stuff like that. And then it's just Ahrefs rabbit holes and Excel sheets from there.
I know the Ahrefs rabbit holes. Yeah, just one more hour. I just want to finish out this spreadsheet. Yeah.
This exists. What is this? 500 more keywords, that sort of
Exactly. Exactly. And speaking of, you hinted about niche versus authority sites. Let's talk about then. Well, don't let me put words in your mouth, but it sounds like you were building niche sites in the beginning, motorcycles, outdoors, and stuff like that. Yeah. Were you niche before and an authority now, or are you still keeping it niche?
I like to have my domain names such that they have room to grow, but they're still considered niche sites. So if I were to use the motorcycle one as an example, it wouldn't be like motorcyclegloves.com. It would just be motorcycle.com or something like that, so that I have room to expand within the niche. But at the end of the day, yeah, it's still niche sites.
Well, let's take a shift over from building websites, niches, and structures and stuff like that, and get into on-site SEO.
Mm-hmm.
How do you go about content? So are you outsourcing it, or are you writing it yourself?
At this point, I outsource all of it because you just don't have time to bust out the amount of content that you need now. When I first started, I was writing it all myself just to save money because good content is expensive. But now I'm at the point where I can outsource it, which is wonderful.
Cool. Where are you getting your writers from, if you don't mind sharing?
I've been working with one writer for a long time. Like I said, I have a small portfolio of sites now, so I don't have enough to max her out, but I found her based on a recommendation in a Facebook group or something like that.
Cool. So how about other types of help? Do you have VAs? Do you have content editors? Let's just do a brief overview of your team and how you structure that.
Yeah, it is small. It is me, 1.5 content writers. I have one girl that I use for, certain easier blog topics. She's a little bit less expensive. So I have the 1.5 content writers, and then a VA that handles link outreach, and a VA that handles basically everything that's piddly on a website. So posting content, if there's anything technically wrong with the site, he can fix it. He can do site speed optimization. He can do some basic on-page SEO. And if, for example, I do an A/B test and find that a button needs to be a different color, he'll do across-the-board changes everywhere.
Okay, interesting. People, I would say left and right, all over the place. One of the biggest questions I get is how to effectively hire and where to find good people. Mm-hmm. Can you give any kind of advice on where you can find the general VA type positions, where you can find writers and stuff like that?
The biggest piece of advice is just don't be afraid to fire somebody, because it takes a while to find somebody who is, one, being paid hourly, not probably even in your country. They're probably not even really associated with your brand. They're just an hourly employee. So it's somewhere else in the world. So you're going to have bad ones and you're going to have good ones. So just find one you think you like, start, and hire quick, fire quick until you find one. So sure. Places like Upwork, stuff like that.
Would you say most of your hires are coming from Upwork or any other sources?
Yeah, Upwork, and then personal recommendation, like for the content writers and stuff like that.
Got it. Okay, let's get back to content. How long do you write your articles, and how do you determine that?
It depends on the competition. Most of the time it's around 2,000 words. I've been using Surfer a lot lately, so really what used to be a manual process, Surfer really makes easy. So I use a lot of their recommendations and kind of take it from there.
Cool, yeah, I agree. It just makes things a lot easier and scalable. Speaking of Surfer, what's your thoughts on keyword density? Myth, real? Do you pay attention to it?
I think it's effective in terms of like NLP stuff. Keyword stuffing, it depends on the SERP really. If it's working in a certain niche, do it. I think just generally speaking, it's basically dead, but every SERP is different, so you kind of have to go into the SERP and see. But I would say for the most part, it's dead.
So keyword density in the sense is you wouldn't stuff keywords just for the sake of ranking, but using some kind of algorithm or some kind of API like Google's NLP can potentially inform you to make better decisions with your content?
Yeah, absolutely. And even that is based on competition. So if for whatever reason I'm in a niche that's super spammy and they are keyword stuffing is going to work. So you kind of have to take it one by one. But I think generally speaking, if you're using, like you said, some sort of AI that's giving you direction, that's going to work 100% of the time versus different theories about, what keyword density is or isn't that is supposed to be across the board. It just doesn't make sense with how Google works.
Yeah. I've never told this story before just because it was a website that I worked on before. But, it's been a long time and keywords long and gone. But I used to have a website ranking #1 for how to brew beer. So how to brew beer, good, we're #1 for it. But for the term how to make a beer, we're on page 5. How to brew beer, how to make beer. Same exact search intent. You can't make beer without brewing it. You can't brew beer without making it. But when we tossed it into a true density algorithm, which is going to look at the entities on the page and tell you what frequency you have certain words compared to the rest of the competition, we had used the word make on the page 60 something times, whereas the average was about 12. So all we did was tone that thing down and it shot up from page 5 to number 2. So at that point in time, I was like, you know what? I don't care what people say on Twitter. This density stuff, it's it's real. I just saw it work right in front of my face.
Yeah, and that's to piggyback off of that. It's real based on the competitors that are ranking. So you're not just blatantly stuffing something just for the sake of stuffing it. You're stuffing it based on what's working, or unstuffing it in your case.
You said it exactly right. So how often do you publish new content? And does that change for the particular type of website? Like for an established website, do you publish faster or slower?
For newer sites, I actually publish faster just to get the general relevance built up. So sites that, are under a year old, I'll do maybe 10 or 15 articles within a month. And then once it gets to a certain point, normally around the 40 page, depending on the niche, I'll start to slow it down to about once a week. Just that can be buyer's guides, that can be supporting content, just keeping something fresh.
Very nice, very nice. And let's talk about interlinking. This is a very hot topic this year, but interlinking various pages, like what kind of process do you use for that?
I used to be super, super strict with it. I've gotten a little bit looser as I've, fine-tuned my skills and everything. It's basically, I like to think of it as topic clusters. So that's also the way that I keyword plan. So instead of just thinking of 1, 2, 3 different random keywords, I'll take one topic idea, keyword research that, group that all together, and then interlink them all to themselves. Now, the only way that I would go outside of that is if there is a topic in another cluster that would, kind of relate back. So it's kind of a mix of just typical technical SEO silo interlinking with a little bit of just what makes sense mixed in, so stuff like that.
Speaking of silos, do you ever follow any of these traditional silo structures, like the top down, the reverse silo, like all these very structured and very planned out configurations?
I used to when I did local SEO, when it was more about services. But now that I'm an affiliate, I'm finding that, at least in my cases, it matters a little bit less, because normally I don't try to rank for keywords that are super high competitive that I would consider like a top tier sort of keyword anyway. I'm normally tier 2, something that's a little bit less competitive. So in order to do like the URL structure and all that, I would be making basically a page that I was going to do nothing with. I had no intention of ranking. So I basically just interlink them without doing any deep URL structure for the most part.
Do you do any featured snippet optimization?
I do. As of the past, 2 weeks, assuming you've noticed as well, they kind of dropped off the face of the earth. So I used to. It used to be something that I would take care of. I would go do feature snippet optimization like twice a month for all of my sites. I would just go one task to just pick a page and do it for everything. I've kind of backed off on that because I can't find snippets anymore for a lot of keywords.
Let's pretend we lived in a world that had consistency in the search result. How would you optimize for featured snippets?
So in this pretend world where Google does what we want them to do, I would Google a keyword and see, first of all, who has the snippet and what type of snippet it is. So if it is a list snippet, that gives me a clue of what Google's looking for. If it is a paragraph snippet, that gives me another clue. So basically I'll go in and first of all, see how they got the snippet, look at what information is actually pulling, and then I'll see where I am in the list of things. So you can put in the search bar minus competitorwebsite.com, and it takes them out of the listings. Then you can see kind of where you fall in line for the snippet. And then I will basically see what they are doing, do some tweaks on my site, re-index it. If it indexes quickly, that's wonderful. I'll check to see, have I moved up? Have I moved down? Now, if I've moved up, I would keep the change. Or if I stayed in the same spot, I'd keep the change. If I move down, revert it and try something else until it works. It's really all about consistency. Like if you just try it long enough, 9 times out of 10, you get it, at least in my experience, as long as you're in, top 3.
Right. It's a big trial and error process, but the good thing about featured snippet optimization, I'm sure you found this as well, is the feedback loop is really quick. You re-index it, you recrawl it in GSC, and you should see whether your change got you the snippet.
Exactly, yeah. And it's just a matter of if Google's, at least I found Search Console sometimes indexed right away, sometimes it doesn't. So if you're in their favor where they're indexing right away, then yes, absolutely, you can know right away.
Cool, cool. Any other on-site SEO tips that you felt got good gains for your websites that we haven't touched upon?
So the biggest thing when I audit people right now, I think we did a webinar the other day where everybody had this issue, is your most valuable real estate on a website in terms of SEO optimization is your URL, your title tag, and your H1. So many people will have the title tag and the H1 the exact same thing, and that leaves a ton of potential long tail keywords on the table. So if you're only optimizing for one thing, you're missing out on 20 different things. So take a couple minutes, go into Ahrefs, see what sort of variations of the keyword they are, and mix up your title in your H1 just so that you can get more stuff.
Yes, I agree 100%. And in the affiliate lab, we call it the 3 kings, as you know. And,
yeah.
It's so important. We had to dress it up with some kind of silly SEO term. So yeah, that's how you know it's really important.
Oh yeah, so fake SEO term.
So let's take a pivot into offsite SEO. What kind of links would you build into a new website?
So I start primarily with basic social accounts, like I'm talking like Pinterest, Facebook, Twitter, stuff like that. Not necessarily for the sake of getting a backlink, but just to claim that entity and to be able to link to it on the website so it looks a little bit more real. But if they index, great. If they don't, I'm not too worried about it. For the most part, it's guest posts.
And what comes after those social profiles?
I would just start, well, first I would wait for the site to get out of the sandbox, so I'm not going to link to something that's not getting any traffic. So once I start seeing traffic come in, even if it's just, a blog or something that doesn't have buyer intent, I'll start building guest blog links to whatever's ranking just so that it looks the most natural. And if it does happen to be a blog that's not something that I'm trying to monetize, I'll just use internal links to kind of funnel the juice. And then as the site grows, start building links to pages that have natural traction. And then the more the site grows, the more authority you have, the more that kind of branches out. Yeah.
So I heard guest posts in there. I heard, do you use any other kind of types of links other than guest posts?
I used to do niche edits before I found out that they were hacked sites. So yeah, that was a couple years ago. But I do true niche edits. So once a site is, getting a little bit of traffic, I'll tell my VA, you can go after guest posts, or if you want to insert a link into an existing article, go for it. But I don't do that right away just because it's not really natural.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then I'm experimenting right now with tier 2 PBN links. I hear it's good, but I hear it's good, but I like to do my own test.
Yeah. So it sounds like, okay, it sounds like you're doing this guest post and link insertion. We'll call it link insertion instead of niche edit to differentiate from the hacked version. But are you doing outreach for all this stuff, or are you purchasing any of them?
Outreach and purchase. So okay. I purchase the links that are outreached.
Yeah. Okay, got it. But okay, cool. When you're outreaching, can you give people, I think a lot of people have trouble, like, how do I get started with outreach? Mm-hmm. So can you just give an example template you might use as the first contact point you would reach out to someone and say, hey, I'm interested in getting a link on your blog?
Yeah, so the first thing, I have some sort of interesting subject line, something that isn't just, hello, kind sir, let me build you a link. So something that grabs their attention. If I'm doing it myself and it's something that I really care about, I'll include something personalized in the subject line so that they know it's not spammy. To be honest, I haven't done it personally in a long time. My VA has been the guy who just kind of handles it. I didn't specifically train him because I didn't have an operating procedure built out that I was even confident with. I specifically went for somebody who had taken certain SEO courses and could just prove themselves. So, yeah.
You know what? That's an awesome answer. So, like, that's what I want to hear high-level operators saying is, you know what, to be truthful, I don't know what they're writing these days because I got someone that's doing it better than I did right now because I've given them that task 100%. So good on you.
Yeah.
Here's a question. Do you know what kind of tools you're using for outreach?
When I was doing it myself, I would use BuzzStream just to automate the actual sending of the emails. And then I would do a lot of scraping in Ahrefs and Google, just basic stuff like that. Good old Excel spreadsheet too. But BuzzStream was the biggest tool, I could say, I guess I used.
Yeah, Cool. And how many links do you like to build per month per site?
It depends on how big the site is. Obviously, when I have a fresh site, around 5 to 10, and then as it grows, get up to 20, 25. That's the max that I send to a site right now. So it kind of goes between that window, just depending on one, how much traffic it has and how aged the site is, and also competitor link velocity as well.
Sure. Yeah. Always need to know that you're outpacing your competition, or you can never expect to beat them, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what are you doing for anchor texts?
Again, like it's based on competition. So I think it might actually be your technique that I'm using. I've been using it for so long now, but it's basically you just take the people who are on the first page of Google, you look at their anchor text, you take an average and use that to compile what you need to do. And like I mentioned before with keyword density, like it changes per SERP. So back in the day, I would think, hey, you need 50% keyword anchors, 50% URL, or whatever the heck it was. Totally throw that out the window. It varies for every single search term. So you have to base it off of competition, and then you just take the average.
Amen, sister, amen. What about social signals? Use them or don't care?
Don't care.
That falls in the don't care bucket. How about, do you keep track of no follow versus do follow ratios?
No, maybe I should. I don't. I have found that they kind of appear naturally as the site grows. I track the links that I build for whatever reason, whether it is, syndication sites or whatever. I tend to pick up no follow links just by existing. So it's not something that I really put a lot of effort into.
Don't worry. I'm just poking to see how tin hat you are. I just want to find out how nerdy
Slightly
you
gray.
truly
The shirt
are.
is actually gray. It looks white, but it's a little gray.
Nice. How about, let's finish up with any other offsite SEO tips that you could recommend, or any other link building knowledge bombs that you want to share.
Not a knowledge bomb, but a reality check is that links cost money. So if you are on a tight budget, you're going to have to be doing it yourself. But even if you're doing it yourself, expect to pay anywhere from $30 to $60 plus for every single link. People are onto the fact that this is a good way to make money, and there's no way around it. If somebody offers you a $20 link on a website, there's probably a reason why it's $20, and you don't want that. So just be ready to spend money. You have to at this point.
Perfect segue. Money. Let's talk about monetization. How do you like to monetize your affiliate sites?
Just good old affiliate links. I have played around with ads in the past, back when, way long ago. I don't do it now. And the thought process being, if I can get a click on an ad that gets me a penny and a half, I'm potentially losing an affiliate click that could get me a couple $100s. So I have yet to be able to see, maybe I'm just being too cautious, but the risk of losing that potential affiliate click doesn't, entice me with how much I can make with ads.
Sure. And with these affiliate links, where are you sending them?
I used to do a lot of Amazon, probably about 80-90%. When was it? March, April, when Amazon did their big cut. Yes, I was about 90% Amazon at that time, and now I'm about 25%. So I send most of my traffic now to manufacturers that bid the highest and have the most relevant product.
Good on you. That's one thing. Well, many times you've caught my eye in the affiliate lab for sharing knowledge bombs, whether you think so or not. But you have a knack for replacing, if you're sending affiliate traffic to Amazon to a particular provider, you have a knack for replacing that kind of direct flow through Amazon and working with them directly. Can you speak a little bit more on that?
Yeah, so this is an industry, whether you're an affiliate or you're in local, where people like to hide. You're going to stand out if you are willing to be a person and you're willing to talk to people. So the way that I'm able to get deals that I'm able to get is because, first of all, I'll apply for a program. I'll send them on my site stats. Whether or not I get approved, they get an email right away that says everything. Now, if I have enough traffic where I feel confident, part of that email is, hey, let's get on the phone. Let's have a conversation. And then you kind of let them talk about the products, make them feel warm and fuzzy. And then I talk about my stuff. And at the end of the conversation, you say, hey, is this what you're willing to offer? How can I get a higher commission? And just getting on the phone and talking to somebody. And you might not even be talking about affiliates. Like I was having a conversation with a guy the other day about fishing. Like it's just, you get to know somebody on a personal level and they're much more likely to want to work with you, and they have a lot of room to wiggle too. So let's say a commission starts at 10%. I guarantee you they can go up to 25% or higher if you're just willing to, one, make it worth it for them, and be real, be nice, be likable, build a relationship. So a lot of people are uncomfortable with that, but that's how I've been able to do it.
What would you say is the minimum commission rate you would find acceptable to move off Amazon, who has amazing conversions, but obviously money talks? Like, what would be the commission rate that you would find acceptable?
I always say 10%, and that is contingent on it not being another online mall too. So I've found that places like, even, let's pretend for a second that Home Depot or eBay or whatever it is gives more than a fraction of a percent. Places other than Amazon that are not direct manufacturer sites don't convert as well as Amazon. Manufacturer sites are designed to sell the singular product. They have a beautiful landing page. Amazon, you just have Amazon addicts, and it converts well because people are addicted to Amazon. But other online malls don't have that. So by basically linking direct to manufacturers as opposed to those, I would say 10% is the starting.
I just want to echo what you said. I use about a 10% gauge, and that can go up or down depending on the beauty of the landing page. Like if it's horrid, if it looks like one of those old school squeeze pages and just screams of scam, like you're going to have to give me 30 or 40%, and it's just a test, right?
Yeah. And even then, like if it doesn't convert, it doesn't, like 50%, 70% doesn't matter. It's still $0.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm assuming you're testing as well. I mean, just because you move off Amazon and you find this 10% deal doesn't mean it's going to convert well. So how do you structure these kind of tests? So do you just kind of go 1 month on this other provider and then just calculate and see which one made more money?
So it's basically that. I honestly have a smaller period. It's a couple of weeks. And what I'll do is I'll take my highest performing page that gets the most amount of content so I can get the most amount of data in a small amount of time, place this new provider, either number 1 or number 2, and just watch it like a hawk and see, how many clicks it's getting and if it has any conversions. And then honestly, right now, my average conversion rate is between 1% and 2%. So I'm looking for something that is at least that. If it's good, or making good money off of it, then I'll just move across the board after that. But I start with 1, maybe 2 pages.
Yeah, it makes sense. Do you ever do any A/B testing to test out Amazon versus something else, or are they always serial tests? Like we'll just replace and then test and then replace
just replace and test, because I'm trying to get away from Amazon as much as possible right now. So even if Amazon's better, like I don't trust them anymore. So there's no sense A/B testing if I want to get rid of them anyway.
I'm not going to disagree with that at all, for sure. Yeah, we've been preaching that in the affiliate lab since the beginning. In fact, the third lesson in the affiliate lab is why we don't like Amazon. So yeah.
Don't you have a story where you lost like $90,000 or something crazy like that?
No, it was 150. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Yeah, they still have that. So let's talk about traffic diversification. Do you get all your traffic from organic? Do you mess around with any PPC, email marketing?
Mostly now, like that is what I know. When I was at the agency, I dabbled in paid ads. Like when I say dabbled, I mean I would look over somebody else's shoulder when I went to get coffee. Like it was not anything that I have training in. It's not anything I'm super confident in. And to be honest, with a lot of affiliate deals, unless you have a super, super high commission rate, to advertise on Google specifically, like it's pretty low margins. Now with stuff like Facebook, if I have a really high commission product, I'll do a little bit of advertising on Facebook, but that's about it.
How about with stuff like email funnels, like offering a lead magnet, getting them in an automated series, and then at least building up a 10,000 person list. And then anytime you release a new post, you're driving 10,000 people back to that post who could convert. You've any experience in that?
I see a ton of value there, because one is traffic you can control, and one, it is traffic that is infinitely growing for the most part, as long as your list is quality. I'm still learning, still a baby there. I think it's viable, so I'm looking into it now.
Okay, cool. So there's nothing holding you back from that. It's just
it's just
work in progress. Yeah, got it. It does seem indeed that you're not scared of new things and you like challenges, and you said it yourself, you like to be uncomfortable, which is the sign of growth for sure. Speaking of growth, what's your plans on scaling your portfolio? Do you want to get into more niches, and how many sites do you have now, and what do you want it to be at?
Right now, I think I have 6 or 7 sites, so it's relatively small. I have said from the beginning that I'm not going to say I don't love money, but money is not my main motivation. It's time. So I want to be able to have a portfolio that I can put 4 or 5 hours a day into. I don't care what I'm doing, but that's how much I want to work per day. So whether I'm scaling and taking a step back in order to reinvest money to have more of just a, oversight situation, I'm open to that, but I don't want to grow and work more just to make even more money, because I'm doing pretty good right now.
That's interesting. So if your primary motivation is time, it almost seems like you're more interested in scaling your team and phasing yourself out of the work rather than scaling your portfolio.
Exactly, yes. So if I can do 4 hours of work where I'm not doing any SEO, I'm just managing a team, great. Like, that's totally on my radar. And if I can make more money doing that, excellent. But I'm not going to sit here and build a ton more sites and keep basically just myself at the helm. So if I want to grow, I'm growing with people, not necessarily just more sites.
Cool. And let's say you are deciding to build a site. Let's say you flip a good one, you have some free time, you want to build a new one. Would you go for a niche site, authority site? Are you going to go for one of the hardcore ones like CBD? You're going to get into payday loans or casino? Like, what's that looking like for you?
Yeah, so I like to stay away from your money, your life, just one, because it's super hyper competitive and it takes a lot more money to be able to compete there. And two, not that I have anything against anybody that does it, but if I'm not an expert on something that is financial or health, I just, from an ethics standpoint, don't want to touch it. I don't want to be recommending products that I may not necessarily personally believe in. So unless I become an expert at something there, I would normally just stay in safer niches, I guess. Was that the question?
Yeah, that works
Okay.
for me. Any regrets moving to 99.9% affiliate?
So I told you I work 4 hours a day now, right? So I went from working 40 hours a week to 20, 25, maybe. I'm always thinking though, like I never actually stop working, just like anybody else that does their own thing. No regrets. I am so much happier. Work-life balance is great. I'm making more money. I have more time. Like, I'm proud of myself. Everybody thinks I sell drugs or something, I'm sure. No, my family does. But no, this is the best decision I've ever made, hands down.
That's awesome to hear that. And do you have any advice for other people that might have been in your shoes, like way back at the agency? Should I jump ship? Or even beginner SEOs that are just deciding between this or drop shipping or staying at a 9 to 5? Like, what kind of advice do you have to people like that?
If you're good at it, do it. If you think this is going to be some get rich quick scheme that isn't going to involve any time or any money, like, you're just going to waste both if you try to pursue this. So you have to know getting into it that it's going to take money to get started. And it's going to take a lot of time. And you have to be relatively good at SEO, at least the way that I do it too. Like, if you're just learning, affiliates, great, because you can learn, but don't expect to fully succeed. Just keep your expectations in check and don't be afraid to fail, even though I'm afraid to fail. We're all afraid to fail. Don't be afraid to fail, preaching from the choir or whatever the heck the saying is. But you're probably going to fail on your first 1 or 2 sites. I guarantee you, Matt, you have a couple of failures under your belt as well. People only see success online. They don't see any of the failures. So just keep chugging.
Yeah, and then how would you recommend, because you had the excellent experience of starting off in an agency, would you recommend that to people to get your education at an agency and leave them high and dry? I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
No, I mean, I would say if you have an opportunity to get, I called it paid schooling towards the end. Working at an agency, I learned so much, and maybe you'll end up loving it, but there's no better way to learn than to do. And I know you're half joking with that question, but in all honesty, like, being in an agency gives you a handful of clients to learn with. So yeah, I would recommend it.
Got it. All right. So before we wrap this up, first off, thank you for this awesome interview. I'm sure a lot of people learned a lot of things, not only on what it was like in your journey, but your process, how you rank websites, what you pay attention to, and how you do certain things. So really thank you a lot. I'm excited to announce that you will be making more of an appearance on this YouTube channel and coming up with a series of basic talks and discussions. Do you want to talk a little bit more about what we can expect?
Yeah, so like we have been talking about this whole time, I come from a local SEO agency background and now I do affiliate. So I have a very wide range of advice to bring to the table, and not only just about SEO, but again, touching on the 80 clients. A lot of what goes into this is organization and knowing where to put your time in order to make more money. So I'm going to be talking about everything involved in that and stuff like, conversion rate optimization and how to make more money with the same amount of traffic that you have now. So I'm basically just going to be putting all my knowledge on the table. So I'm excited.
I'm excited. You guys should be excited too. Julie, thanks so much for your time. It's been eye-opening. You're awesome. Congrats on all your success too. Thank you
Thank you
so
so
much.
much. See you later.